Welcome to this Monday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Ja Morant is a superstar, not just in basketball, but across sports. Damichael Cole and I are going to talk about that. Plus, Tuomas Iisalo's first training camp is just a week away from getting underway. How's it going to go look different from Taylor Jenkins? We're going to start this episode the way that we ended it on Friday. Cedric Coward is 100%, you cowards. It's going to be a fantastic Monday here on Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Grizzlies. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mullinax. Happy to be back with my wonderful co-host, my partner in crime, Damichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Getting ready to amp up and get this thing rolling. We are about a week away from training camp getting started. Each and every day, you should be coming right here, wherever you get your podcast, to Locked On Grizzlies, starting your day as your first listen, your first watch with Damichael and I. Make sure whether it's Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, you are an everydayer at this point as we get the season started. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Be a part of our little corner of the internet that we like to call Locked On Grizzlies. Don't be a lurker, right? It's cool to come and watch and hang out. Most of you are lurkers, but we like to think we're friendly. We don't bite hard here at Locked On Grizzlies. We just like to hang out and enjoy and talk Grizzlies basketball for about 30 minutes a day. So let us know where you're watching, where you're listening. Hit us up in the comments or on X at Joe Mullinax on my end, at Damichael C for my co-host, the illustrious, the award-winning, the very handsome Damichael Cole. Damichael, how are you doing, sir? It is good to see you, and it is good to be reading articles from you again about positive Grizzlies injury news.
Yeah, it's good. I feel like the workflow is pretty much almost there now. We're starting to have a lot of Grizzlies community events, starting to see a lot of the players. I've seen a lot of the guys over the last few days now. And we're getting closer to that point. As myself, I'm feeling a little bit better now. Yesterday was a terrible day. Both of my teams, for those who don't know, WNBA, I'm a Phoenix Mercury fan, and everyone knows who my NFL team is. I'm still representing, Joe, because guess what? We're still going to win the bowl. Like, this is just a little hiccup, but that's neither here nor there. But on the Grizzlies front, Joe, we're starting to get more content, and we got a lot to add to the show today.
From the illustrious Memphis Grizzlies beat writer, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal. This was posted on Saturday. Cedric Coward is 100% cleared for all basketball activities. He'll be a full go in training camp, and he's really excited about it after not being able to play during Summer League. A direct quote from Cedric Coward in your article, partner. It's like letting the wolves out. That's what it is. So I highly recommend, if you haven't read the story, if you're not subscribed to the Commercial Appeal, maybe you let it lapse over the summer because for whatever reason, I think that's a poor choice, but it's your money, it's your life. Time to resubscribe to Damichael Cole on the Commercial Appeal because it's a terrific article on Grizzlies rookie Cedric Coward. You had a chance to speak with him. I love his intensity. I love his focus. I know you ended our Friday episode talking about Coward. Here he is leading off this episode. A very interesting fellow, to say the least.
Very interesting, and he's a confident guy. Now that I'm starting to get to know Cedric Coward just a little bit better, it's still very early, right? He just got drafted a few months ago, but over the course of time being around these players, you start to get to know them as opposed to when the camera is in their face, and then when the camera's out of their face. And like a lot of guys, he's more on the chill side when the camera's not around. But some like to be chill on camera, whatever. But it's like this dude just rises to the occasion. Like, I had a couple people, around the league text me, because for some reason people like to check in on Cedric Coward. I know one guy told me that he had heard that some teams, felt like, okay, we wanted to see a little bit more game action before we bought into, the hype or the potential hype there is, of a Cedric Coward. And then you have other people text me like, man, he's really impressive in interviews. And that's what I get the sense, every time we talk to him, he's very impressive. He's open, he's honest, and he's quick on his feet with his thoughts. But getting to what you said there, 100% ready to go. Not only 100% now, he's been 100%. He told me since sometime in August, and so he not only is he ready to go, but we'll talk about it, more of the course of this week. But he's also been able to work out with some of his Grizzlies teammates, which is also a thing. I talked to Javon Small some last week as well, and those younger players have talked about getting acclimated with the Grizzlies by getting that time where while they're technically not in training camp yet, they're not in preseason camp, they're not doing all this work with, Iisalo, where they're running the sets and things like that. They're able to get in the gym with their teammates, get up and down, get a feel for, who likes the ball, who the strengths and weaknesses on the floor, and play a little bit. So it's really good to see, Cedric Coward won't go into camp with any limitations or whatever. Like you said, he said it's like letting the wolves out, Joe. When you hear quotes like that, you get chills going down. You're like, because that's how he feels. Because I told him when I was talking to him, I said, man, you almost feel like you're being let out in a way. You remember going into summer league, he wanted to play then. He wanted to play in summer league, and the Grizzlies like, we gotta take the precautions here. We gotta be careful. I'll give a shout out to the Grizzlies on that end. I know some people say, the Grizzlies be too cautious or whatever the case may be. But guess what? Now that summer league's over, who cares about summer league at this point? So I don't think him missing summer league is no indication whatsoever on what's about to happen this upcoming season. He'll go into training camp. He's going to be full go. It's not just he's 100% cleared and they're going to hold him back and slowly bring him on. No, he's going to do everything that the team is going to do from day one all the way up and through training camp, through preseason games and whatnot. So excited to see what that process looks like for Cedric Coward.
And the point that I think was most important that you hit on there is it's not being eased in. He's been cleared, right? So it's not like we're going through the process of clearance. It's not like the doctor clears you and then you have to be cleared by the training staff. No, he is 100% full tilt, and we're going to be able to see very early on what he is capable of and what he's going to bring to the Grizzlies team, which should excite every Grizzlies fan because, as you and I have talked about often, others have as well, so much of what the ceiling of this team this coming season has to do with what the wing position is capable of, how guys like Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams Jr., Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, and Cedric Coward is a part of that conversation. The Grizzlies didn't trade up for him because they think he's going to stink. They made the move they did because they believe in the capabilities of this young man. And I do feel better knowing that he's going to be 100% because you never want to go into the season, especially with a rookie, being behind in that way. I'm not as worried about a Jaren Jackson Jr. because he's going into his 8th NBA season or something like that. I'm not as worried.
This year 8. Jersey number 8. Year 8.
Yeah, I'm very old. I'm not even necessarily worried about Zach Edey, even though it's his sophomore season. I've seen Zach Edey play NBA basketball. For a rookie to come into their first season in the pros, or whatever we call the NBA now, I guess because college they get paid too, to come into the NBA and not have to worry about that injury, that to me matters so much because there is going to be that adjustment of playing more basketball than they've ever played at this high of a level, training their body, the nutrition, all of this stuff that goes into actually being one of the top 400 or so basketball players on the planet in the NBA. That can be the focus. Aside from rehab on top of it, that can be mentally taxing in its own way.
Yeah, definitely. And we see that with a lot of Grizzlies players who have to start the season kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit. And a lot of times when we reflect on the season, we find ourselves talking about, man, they just got off to a rough start and it kind of ricocheted or whatever the case may be from there. As we kind of talk about, Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson going into this season, we still find ourselves talking about the beginning of last season for them. So with Cedric Coward, being, a pick, the number 11 overall pick, they traded up to go get him, an indication of what the Grizzlies think he could be. You look at the skill set, you see these long arms, a 7'1", 7'2" wingspan, 6'6". He tells you he shoots the ball really, really well. Like that's one of the things that he feels like he's going to come, from day one, be able to add that in the league of the defensive upside that he has. You have all these tantalizing tools where you feel like, man, if he puts it together, it could be a really nice basketball player. I think the biggest question on that end, though, Joe, is the fact that a lot of people are saying, well, we saw 6 games last season at the collegiate level from Mr. Cedric Coward. So, people want to see the film But I tell you what, we're off to a good start in terms of the health standpoint. He was able to be drafted in spite, of the health concerns that came or whatever the case may be. But the Grizzlies did what any team should have done when they draft him. Take your time. We're talking about a partially torn rotator cuff here. Let him heal properly. Even when he, sometimes you got to hold him back from themselves, hold the wolf back. But now the wolf wants to be let out. So let him out the cage and let him go hunt.
I'm going to date myself here. It makes me think of the Baja Men who let the dogs out, right? Like that 1999.
What did they say after who let the dogs out? What comes
Yeah, that's exactly what they said. I think it was 1999. Were you alive in 1929? Yeah, or
1929. I tell you what.
Not 1929. I'm old, but I wasn't alive then either. Were you alive? How old were you in 1999?
99. I was 3 years old in November 99, but I was 2 most of the year. So yeah.
I was
around. I was walking around somewhere.
You were walking around somewhere. Good Lord. Let us know on X at Damichael C at Mullinax. Despite my advanced age, I am still on social media. Let us know how you're feeling about Cedric Coward. Damichael and I both very high on him. I have a feeling this won't be the last time that we talk about Cedric Coward this week and in the lead up to the Grizzlies season getting underway. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, speaking of somebody who's going to be a focal point of our time together, Ja Morant, his continued cross-sport influence. That'll be our next topic. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I am a big believer in 5 Hour Energy because of the fact that they are sugar-free. I'm trying to watch my figure at this advanced age of mine. Honestly, I like that it kicks in, and it kicks in pretty quickly, but the fact that it's sugar-free, I'm not as worried about crashing, and I'm not as worried about the side effects that can come from sugar in terms of, weight loss and that sort of stuff. So enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. Go check them out. All right, Damichael. So I peruse social media. I'm not as active on there out of season now as I once was. I believe that's called maturation.
Look at you.
A positive of getting older. But I still dabble in the social media stuff. And in preparation for this episode, I wanted to see what folks were talking about with the Grizzlies over the weekend. And again, it's still kind of quiet ahead of training camp, but I did notice you pointing out from the WNBA playoffs going on. I know your squad, the Phoenix Mercury, struggling a little bit in the playoffs. But whether it's the Mercury, whether it's the Aces, whoever your flavor might be in terms of WNBA team, a lot of folks wearing the Ja 3s out there. A lot of folks into the Ja Morant shoe. And then I came across a photo. It might have been on your account as well, but I saw it somewhere. Josh Naylor, I believe, of the Seattle
Mariners first baseman.
Josh Naylor of the Seattle Mariners wearing the Ja 3s as a baseball cleat, which is fascinating. So again, you are the undisputed sneakerhead of our tandem. So I am not going to pretend like I know what something being cool is. But how much of it is Ja's impact on the sports world as kind of like that Iverson-esque? Again, I'm not going to say he's Allen Iverson because I lived through Allen Iverson. He's not Allen Iverson, at least not yet. But he's not as far off as I think people maybe would think because of whether it's the shoes, the cleats in the case of Naylor, whether it's, seeing college teams and NFL players. I think they shut it down pretty quickly. But doing the grenade toss celebration, Ja Morant is definitely somebody that a lot of other athletes pay attention to. How much of it is, the shoe is just a good shoe, and how much of it is, they're picking up what Ja Morant's putting down?
I'm gonna surprise you a little bit with this answer, but I'll bring you back in as I get to the end here. But right now, it's solely about the shoe. It's solely about it. It's not about the flair and all of those things. Even though that's going to be a part of it, no matter who. If you're a signature shoe athlete, you get the shoe because of that. But Ja Morant, in particular, with the Ja 3, when I talk to people about the Ja 3, when I see the Ja 3, I'm just looking at it like, man, it's a really good shoe. It's a shoe that you want to wear. It's a shoe that looks like one that you want to wear. And on the Ja Morant side, if you've listened to it, heard what he said about the shoe, this is the shoe that he's been the most involved in when it comes to Ja 1, Ja 2, Ja 3, all the way down to the Nike swoosh, the slanted, the swoosh shine that looks like the letter J, then putting the A with it or whatever to make it look, like Ja. The model of the shoe. This is the shoe that Ja has been the most involved with, and you see that with the shoe. I actually have a story that came out this morning on a commercial appeal that directly speaks to this. And one of the stats in the story, I want people to go check it out. But one of the stats in the story, as it talks about, the reviews and how people are kind of, receiving the Ja 3, is it's been one of the most popular shoes in the WNBA. Like, and this isn't hyperbole. There's stats that back this up. I think in there, I referenced about a week ago on September 14th. It was in the top 5 of most worn sneakers in the WNBA. And not only is that big for Ja Morant's brand, it's confirmation. It's confirmation because that the Kobe's are going to be in there. Without a doubt, the Kobe's are going to be one of the top shoes in the NBA this season. They were one of the top shoes in the NBA last season. They're going to be one of the top shoes in the WNBA. Everybody loves the Kobe. It is arguably the greatest basketball shoe last 15, 20 years. Now, with that being said, the same thing's been said recently for Kyrie's or whatever. But as we're talking about the Ja 3, the Sabrina right now, I think you talk about players who've recently got a signature shoe. Sabrina Ionescu, her shoe is at the top. But as I've talked to people, they're saying, hold up now. This Ja 3 has the potential to rival, Sabrina's shoe, so to speak. And we know, the impact that Sabrina's shoes had in the WNBA and in the NBA. It's in that top 10 most worn type category as well. But the Ja 3 is right now more about the fact that it's been a good shoe. I don't know if Josh Naylor has any kind of tie-ins to Ja Morant, so to speak. We know Ronald Acuna, Ja Morant gave him a specialized Ja 3 cleat, and he wore it for the Atlanta Braves in a game earlier this season. But again, the Ja 3, we've seen Natasha Howard, where we've seen players on the Phoenix Mercury, where Natasha Cloud, who just got put out the playoffs by my Phoenix Mercury, by the way. Shout out to Natasha, though. I like her as a player. But she was wearing a Ja 3 recently. So it's kind of taking on, I think, in the early stages, as this is a shoe that I want to wear. But where we could go from here, Joe, is the fact that if you look at the top 10 shoes in the NBA over the last couple years, none of those shoe models really aren't going anywhere. So it's hard to say that Ja Morant will crack the top 10 when we look back at the end of the 25-26 season and say that Ja 3 was one of the 10 most worn sneakers. That's going to be really tough to do. But to your point, that flair, Ja Morant gets back on the floor. He's scoring 25. He's scoring 28 points a game, which I think he's very capable of doing this season with the way that the Grizzlies roster is set up. He's back to that, no doubt about it, all-star, all-NBA talent, and he's playing. He's available. You're going to see players. You're going to see people. You're going to see the Ja 3 kind of elevate on its own. And I think this shoe has that type of potential without a doubt. Everything that we've seen from a stylistic standpoint with this shoe is setting it up for it to be a very big shoe this upcoming year.
I have a fairly hot take about Ja Morant, and I know that I tricked people the last time that I was on, and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw
I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure?
I tricked people. I think it was on the Thursday show. They thought that I was going to trash Ja, and it was the opposite. I just wanted to, and again, I'll take the opportunity. Here it is. It's still in our. If you're on YouTube, the stupid list is still available to us. So I'm going to make you look at it because I have to look at it every time I'm on the show. There's Ja number 28, completely moronic. But I was being silly and made people think I was worried that Ja was going to be overloaded. I have a hot take on the opposite end of that spectrum that I think I'll maybe save for tomorrow's show. A nice little lead in to the Tuesday podcast. I think that there's lots of reasons why Ja is going to see kind of a renaissance this year. And maybe it's Beale Street blue colored glasses, but I think that you're exactly right. It's just a good shoe and people like wearing it. But I think by the end of this coming season, it's going to be back to where it was when the deal got signed initially. and they had the pop-up at All-Star Game and those sorts of things. I think that it's going to be closer to that cross-sport cultural kind of dynamic as opposed to just being a nice shoe. And I'll give more about that on our episode tomorrow.
I think it has the potential to be the shoe, I guess you could say, of the year, or whatever. I interviewed for the story that I was talking about for tomorrow. I interviewed Jacques Slade, who some people will know as Cousteau. He is a very popular sneakerhead with over I think a million 1.3 million YouTube subs. Very popular in the sneaker community, Joe. And what we talked about when he was talking about the Ja Morant shoe is one thing that he said that didn't make the story. So I'm paraphrasing here, but he was like, that's the next step for Ja, that cultural pop that the Kobe's have had, that the Kyries had at the time when Kyrie was with Nike, that LeBron has sort of had as he's gotten, older in his career with his shoe as well. That cultural pop on a national level is next for Ja Morant, and I think it can happen.
Let us know in the comments. Hit us up on X at Damichael C, at Joe Mullinax. How are you feeling about Ja Morant's cross-sport influence at this stage of his career? And like I said, a little tease for tomorrow's episode. I think I'm going to come in hot on the opposite end and mean what I say when I talk about how I perceive Ja going into the season. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, going to close out this episode of the show talking about the season getting started. We're about a week away from training camp. How is Tuomas Iisalo's training camp going to look different from that of the, not recently anymore, but the former head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, Taylor Jenkins? Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting for you. Monarch can allow for you to link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel like you're in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. It lets you maximize investments, increase savings rates, review your finances with your wife, your spouse, your partner, and or your financial advisor, keeping a clear view of your financial health week to week and long-term as well. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKDOWNNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, buddy, we're closing out this edition of the show talking about Tuomas Iisalo approaching a week away. Surely he has the butterflies in his belly, his chance to finally have this look the way he wants it to look. He's not trying to land the plane like we talked about a few months ago, the plane that was on fire and burning and falling apart by the end. That's not what this is. This is a fresh start. It is his training camp. It is his design, his practice schedule, his training regimen. What can we expect? And again, this is probably something you can ask about next week at Media Day. But just off of what you know of Iisalo and the Grizzlies, this new look, new era that they're embarking on, what do you think we can expect from a Tuomas Iisalo-led training camp for the Memphis Grizzlies?
Yeah, we can expect toughness to be, a big deal here. There's a lot of power in doing these small things, that lead to big plays or whatever the case may be. I think that's going to be a big emphasis. We've already talked about, they want to get out and run. They want to, set screens on the ball, off the ball to create for the teammates and things like that. I think that's one of the things that we can definitely expect as well. But as much as we could expect, when it comes to Iisalo's first training camp for me, Joe, it's the things that right now we have no clue about that I'm really most intrigued by. And I say that, and then I want to pivot to this more so. We've talked a lot about potentially, some things they're going to do on the offensive end. It has been under-discussed by not just us, by everyone. The fact that Taylor Jenkins has had a huge say-so in this defense since he's been here. He's had defensive coordinators and coaches or whatever the case may be, but the defensive system has been built around Taylor Jenkins since Ja Morant was drafted, since Jaren Jackson Jr.'s second year, way back in 2019. Well, guess what? Now you got a completely different coaching staff from the standpoint of what will be the emphasis, Joe. We used to see it all the time, right? People complaining about the open three-pointers. You remember there were so many games. There was the Herb Jones game. There was the Derrick Jones game as well. There was the Rui Hachimura playoff game. So many times where the Grizzlies said, hey, that's the worst shooter on the team. Let's just make them beat us from three-point range. They got burned a lot by it. They won some games that way too, but that was more Taylor Jenkins thing. I'm really curious to see what will the defensive principles look like with Iisalo, because you can say what you want about Taylor Jenkins. Yeah, they fell off defensively that last season, but I could make the argument that was more about personnel than the principles, because at the end of the day, the principles worked for a very long time, even though you can make an argument they probably didn't work in certain moments against certain teams. But over the course of the season, the Grizzlies were always at the top of the league, top 5, top 10 defensively. But, Joe, that's kind of stands out to me when we talk about Iisalo's first training camp.
You could easily argue that was the clearest sign that something was amiss, that the defense was struggling, because that was always something the team could hang its hat on. There were plenty of seasons under Jenkins where the offense was the problem, right? Mm-hmm. That's what led to the offensive renaissance last season. But the fact that the defense had fallen apart was kind of a sign that things were not going the way that they should be going. I guess it was year 6 of the Taylor Jenkins experience. I am excited to see what Iisalo does in terms of what he prioritizes in his practices. You know, and Drew over the Daily Memphian, you guys that are beat writers, folks that are there every day, you do a phenomenal job kind of covering those ins and outs. What is the messaging, right? What is going to be the priority? You mentioned toughness a moment ago. Every coach has something that they want to hang their hat on, right? And it brings you back to the heat culture idea. I don't think that the Grizzlies do something like that, but I do think what makes you a Memphis Grizzly? What is that identity? Because this is a new time. This is a new coaching staff, as you alluded to. Taylor Jenkins was here for 6 seasons. So this is a major shift, or almost 6 seasons. So this is a major shift for the franchise. Obviously, Ja and Jaren and other key players are still here. But what is going to be the priority in terms of the mentality? What makes a Memphis Grizzly, as silly as that might sound, that matters in sports. And one of the true, I think Pablo Torre said this in an episode of his podcast recently, and it really stuck out to me. Sports are one of the last true meritocracies, right? You go out there, you play the game, you win, you lose. That's one of the realities of sport. I think that's one of the reasons people are still so passionate about it, even a very, polarized 2025. I think that how you invest, I always complimented Taylor Jenkins on that, whether it was the killing of the murder of George Floyd, whether it was what was going on in the bubble. He was genuinely invested in his players. How does Iisalo make those connections and get them to buy into whatever it is he's trying to sell? That is going to be tremendously important, perhaps even more than any X's and O's. Yeah,
for sure. And you bring up a good point, because you think about the identity. It was very clear what Taylor Jenkins' identity was defensively, offensively, and even from a mental standpoint over the course of his tenure. And one of the things that he emphasized a lot that, ironically, I think this team is going to need a lot of is development. Taylor Jenkins used to put a lot of time into developing players. That was a very essential part of what the Grizzlies wanted to do and what they planned to do, the way they planned to do things. Now, there was the other side of it was, sometimes you saw them playing, 11-man rotations and things like that. And people would say, oh, play your best 8, play your best 9, or whatever the case may be. But developing those guys was very important. I want to see how Iisalo handles that, because we see with some NBA coaches, they don't really just say it like this, but they don't trust young guys. And they say, you know what, we're going to play the guys that we know that have it right now. And then those guys prove it in practice, and then they step on the floor. But you have some people say, you know what, they've been playing all right. Let's put them on the floor in the NBA, and then we'll see what we can see from them over the course of time, and maybe they'll either earn a bigger role or they'll start to peel them back later in the season. I think the latter was more Taylor Jenkins, and then first name that comes to mind for me is Mike Brown as a guy. In Sacramento, that was a big thing. He wasn't playing Keon Ellis much. He wasn't playing, Devin Carter, those guys even more when he was solely relying on those vets. How will Iisalo be? Will it be much of, hey, look, we know what we got from Ja, Jalen, Kentavious Caldwell Pope, Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson Jr., Scotty, and Ty Jerome, and we're going to ride those guys? Or will the Vince Williams, the G.G. Jacksons, the Cedric Coward, so maybe even the Javon Small, will those guys get every opportunity in game action to show what they bring to the table?
And I think that might be one of the reasons Taylor Jenkins did not get that New York Knicks job, right? Mike Brown may be a little bit better suited for the kind of roster that the Knicks got. Taylor Jenkins, obviously, more of a development coach. I do think that's fair to say about him at this stage of the game. Hit us up on X at Damichael C, at Joe Mullinax. How are you feeling about Tuomas Iisalo a week away from training camp officially opening? How do you see him being different than Taylor Jenkins? That's going to be one of our major storylines to watch heading in to the start of the 2025-2026 season. Thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Friendly reminder that the Locked On NBA Top 100 has arrived. Voted on by the NBA hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts like Damichael and I that cover these teams and players every day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We've had several episodes about the list. If you are watching on YouTube, I flashed the ranking of Jaren and Ja. Jaren at 25, Ja 28. I do my best to mention it as little as possible because it just makes me mad. But we're going to have Matt Moore at HP Basketball on at some point. He was the first one to agree to get yelled at by me about the list, so more content will be coming, perhaps even this week on that front. I do think tomorrow is going to be a good time, though, partner, for us to start talking about maybe not season previews per se, but expectations of guys going into the season ahead. And I do think it starts with Ja Morant, because as much as in the past couple of years, are you trying to win a championship or not? We've been saying a lot that without Ja Morant, nothing else matters. He is a natural starting point for whatever this Grizzlies team is going to be.
Yeah, he's a natural starting point, and he is the point. He's the point guard, and he will have to be the best version of himself. And we can definitely get into that more. I like when we do these segments. I tend to go back and try to listen to some of them. Last year, I forget who said it because I can't remember, but we were saying some stuff last year, man. I mean, I think Luke Kennard was getting some 6-man talk.
Yeah, that was probably me saying that.
But you sure it could have been me. I'm not gonna let you. It could have. I don't remember, but whatever it was, I'm looking forward to it because this roster is much different from the ones of the past. And even with the Luke Kennard thing out there, one thing you can say, we're pretty accurate for the most part when it comes to the past rosters, more so because of the fact that you pretty much had a good idea of what those teams were going to be based on what we know and based on what we see around the Western Conference. This team, no Desmond Bane for the first time in a while. John Jaren kind of leading the way, a lot of young pieces, new coach. Like, it's completely different.
Very different vibe, very different feel, and it's something to keep an eye on. We're going to start that journey with you guys tomorrow. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing, wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Make Damichael and I a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode drops. Shout out to our everydayers who hang out with us each and every new episode. Hopefully that becomes you if it is not already you after today's show. For Damichael Cole, I am Joe Mullinax. We both will be back with you tomorrow, free and available wherever you get podcasts. Make sure you're there. Until then, have a great rest of your Monday. We'll catch you next time on Locked On Grizzlies.